Hello, my name is Monica Main, and I wanted to show you very quickly how to use the 2013 Cash Flow Evaluator. And one of the things I like to do is a video tutorial to be able to show you how to use this incredible Excel spreadsheet software program to find out what the cash flow is on any particular property that you're considering investing in. In fact, this is always a critical step whenever you're considering any kind of investment property, that you actually figure out what the cash flow is before you go forth and put in an offer or purchase the property. I've known so many different students, very smart, highly educated people, that will actually go forth and purchase a property and they have absolutely no clue as far as what the cash flow is, and then come to find out once they purchase the property it turns out to be a negative cash flow situation and they're screwed. So you don't want to end up in that situation, obviously, and therefore the cash flow evaluator analysis is always the first step whenever you're considering any kind of investment passive income property. Okay, so here we go. I actually preliminarily found a property deal on LoopNet.com. LoopNet is one of the largest online MLS services for commercial real estate. And so I always come here. I have a premium subscription to LoopNet.com that allows me to see all of the different listings in a variety of different areas of the country that I'm interested in investing. And this particular one is in Los Angeles, even though I don't personally invest in Los Angeles, even though I live in Los Angeles County, because the cap rates are extremely low on these properties. If you could see the cap rate 6%, you really need to be over 8.5 or 9% in order to be able to get a cash flowing property. But I just wanted to show you basically how this particular cash flow evaluator version works. So I'm going to pop it up on the screen. Obviously, whenever you start the process of filling out the cash flow evaluator, you do need to enable content in the very top. You'll see the security warning in yellow at the very top of the page, so you always enable the content so that you can actually go forth and fill it out. And then what we're going to do is start the process of filling in some data. Now, obviously, if you have a property name here, this particular property name would be Chinatown, LA 5 units. So if you wanted to go forth and put that in there, that's fine. You could put the address, as you can see, you could very easily do that on your own. I don't have to show you how to do that. Now you could pick out the property type, and this particular is a apartment building, which is 5 units or more. A quad is actually a fourplex or 4 units, which is considered a residential property as far as getting a loan goes. So is a triplex, duplex, and of course a single family residence. However, we do put this in there because now some of my students are actually investing in cash flowing properties that are considered residential properties. So even though a quad is actually considered residential, they're highly lucrative properties, and it's actually a fourplex. So that's what a quad is. And of course, self-explanatory, it's self-storage. Mobile home park, commercial, which would be retail strip malls, office buildings, industrial warehouse, that kind of thing. And other could be something else. Maybe you're considering a hotel or something else, so you put that under other. Okay, obviously this is also self-explanatory, where we have the asking price, which is $660,000. Okay, what I'm going to go over here is the offer price, meaning what are you going to offer them, because you never offer what they're asking. And typically my rule of thumb is to go down 10 to 15%. So let's just say for the purposes of this particular presentation, we're just going to offer $600,000, although I'd probably offer less than that. Now the financing structure is always pretty tricky. Usually what the conventional loans are now, it's at 80-20, so it's 80% LTV, 20% down. So we'll go ahead and put that in there. If you're asking for a second position, you would leave this part. So if you could see the financing acquisition section right here, you would leave this as the first position of 80%. If you're in other areas of the country like Michigan, Ohio, and Florida, your LTV on a conventional loan is going to be maximum 65%. So you have to put 65% instead of 80 here, but we defaulted at the 80% because that's generally what a conventional loan LTV is going to be. And then we have a second position. If you're planning on putting cash down, you're going to zero this out. If you're not planning on putting any money down, then you will put that in there and hopefully maybe get a seller to hold a second position, because you're not going to get a hard money guy to take a second position on a loan. Okay, so we're assuming we're putting the 20% down on this, and we're assuming we're getting an 80% LTV on this particular property deal. Our interest rate's going to be around, I always put 6 or 7%. Depending, it's always much higher. I wouldn't say much higher, but it's higher than your residential rate. So for residential rates are around 4%, you could put 5.5 or 6% to be safe. More than likely it's going to be between 6 and 7 on a conventional loan. And of course, if it's hard money, it's going to be an interest only at around 10 to 15% depending on where you're getting your hard money loan. So if you're getting a hard money loan, you would then click this little box here to calculate it as an interest only payment. Because on a hard money loan, you're only going to be paying interest. You're not paying any of the principal whatsoever. However, we're not doing that because we're not going to assume that we're going to be getting a hard money loan on this. Okay, so we have here the first yellow box. And the rule of thumb with my cash flow evaluators is make sure that the yellow boxes are filled in. So as you see, we get past that one yellow box, which is the offer price. We get to the second yellow box, which is the gross operating income, or the GOI. So going back to our listing, we see that they gave us the effective gross operating income, which is $51,900. So let's put that in there. Okay, so that's what the gross income is in the entire year, or the last year they've been operating this particular, I call it a business, but this particular property. Now you'll see that they actually have a unit mix tab. So you could put all of this stuff individually in there if you wanted to, but it looks like they have 4 different 1-bedroom, 1-bath, or 1-1s, and then they have 1-2-1, and they're all at different rates. Okay, so if you wanted to go ahead and put that in there as far as individually here and itemize it out, that's on you. I'm not going to do this for the purposes of this presentation because this particular number in this yellow box will cover all of this here. But I do recommend that if you're doing this on your own, you do actually itemize this out if it does give you the unit mix and the rental per unit. Okay, so then now we're getting down to the expenses again. We have another yellow box. The yellow boxes are critical to fill out. Going back to the financial summary, we see that the operating expenses are per year $12,096. So let's go ahead and stick that in here. Okay, and of course I'd normally prefer that you itemize all this out. If you did itemize this out, you wouldn't have to stick anything other than any kind of miscellaneous in the yellow box. Instead, you'd have all these itemized out, and this would probably be 0. Okay, and then now we take a look. We have an NOI, or net operating income, which we don't particularly need for this property. I'll show you how you could use it. Okay, but at the very bottom you'll see under net income that we have an annual cash flow of $42.84, or a little over $4,000 a year. We have a monthly income of $357, and a DCR, which usually has to be around 1.25, is only 1.135. So it actually has to be 1.25 to be able to get any kind of financing on this. So then we could play with it and go, okay, well, this isn't really going to work for me. Let's try to offer $550 and see what happens, and go back down to the bottom. Our DCR still isn't where it needs to be. It needs to be at 1.25. However, monthly cash flow is almost $600. Still not really worth it in my eyes. However, it might be worth it in your eyes. And remember, you do have to put 20% down to figure this out. If I said, for example, well, let me try to get a seller second for 20%, that's going to probably put me real close to 0. Okay, if you see, if I'm financing the second 20% at a 4% interest, which would probably be more like 8%, I'm going to be in a negative cash flow here. Okay. All right, now that we have these tabs at the bottom, we have property notes that you can make notes on the particular property deal. Any kind of notes or comments you want to make. You have a speedy asking price finder, which means that, it gives you an idea of, the overall, I guess you could say, glance at everything that's going on this property. The asking price finder, which is the most critical. If you're trying to get $25,000 per million in asking price in cash flow, which is my general rule of thumb, you can go lower like 20,000. I wouldn't go below like 17,000 per million. But my rule of thumb is 25,000 per million in cash flow that you want to make. So if you have a $2 million building, you're going to be wanting to get $50,000 a year in cash flow. Okay, that's the idea. All right, and so obviously this does not qualify. This particular property does not qualify. Let's go back and take this out, and assuming that we are putting down the down payment here, then I'll show you in a perfect world it'll actually tell you how much you're supposed to be asking to get your cash flow, and it's looking like you would literally have to drop the asking price from $660,000 to $277,000 just to be able to get to $25,000 per million. So obviously if you change that to say 17 instead, then you'll be able to offer more on the property. You could offer a little more than 400,000 down here. You'll see this on this line here. Okay, so that's how that works. Some other information, say for example you're looking through a LoopNet listing, and you'll find this a lot, where you can only put in the net operating income. This is the only number right here on this line that actually shows up, which happens again a lot on these LoopNet listings. You can actually plug that in. What net operating income is if you paid 100% cash for the property, how much would you actually make in cash flow? This is the cash flow that you get less expenses in a perfect world, if they did this correctly, less taxes as well. So let's plug this number in, 39,804. We'll put that in here. So all you would need is the purchase price, which we changed to $550 on the other page, and the net operating income. And then you would actually get your cash flow without knowing a lick of information else about the property, which is a really nice feature, because again, you'll find a lot of properties on LoopNet that'll have no other number except this net operating income. And this net operating income tab here will allow you to use that number. As long as you know the purchase price and the net operating income, you can actually get the cash flow. Okay? Something new in the 2013 version is something called the flip analysis, which is a tab right next to the net operating income. And if you're interested in, say, flipping a single-family home, mostly is what this is for, or flipping a property, you would put the purchase price. So say, for example, it's a single-family home and it's $100,000, okay? And there's it's one unit, obviously. All right, your acquisition cost, it'll include that automatically, which is a default of 5%. Usually it's between 5 and 7% to acquire a property. And then you would put, okay, well, if I buy it for $100,000 and I want to resell it for, say, $150,000, all right, and I want to do rehab, and the rehab is usually, Gut to the Studs rehab is approximately $10,000 to $15,000 a door. So we'll put $12,000 and it costs to rehab it. Okay. So it'll tell you whether or not you will actually make money on this deal, because if your profit goal is $25,000 to make, it's going to show you that you're not going to make that. All right, so you must sell the property. It'll tell you right here at the very bottom how much you absolutely have to sell the property for to get this $25,000 that you want to make on your flip. So that's the most incredible, I think, part of this new 2013 Cash Flow Evaluator, because it allows you to actually do a flip analysis. If you're interested in flipping a single-family home or even an apartment building, you would just have to put the number of units in there. And if it is an apartment building, you know, it's 20 units, you'd put 20 units, and cost per door, it'll actually calculate it by door. So if you have 10 units, it's going to do this times 12, the 12,000 here. So very, very incredible, I guess you could say, upgrade on this particular. And then, of course, if you wanted to use down payment assistance, this would also help you out as well. Figure out exactly what you need to ask for a buyer's repair credit on the down payment assistance tab. All these defaults are pretty much legitimate defaults that you can leave in here, and it gives you an idea of how much to ask for a buyer's repair credit if you want an 80% LTV, which is a typical LTV on a conventional loan, and you need to fill in the 20% part. It'll tell you exactly, this red number here, exactly what you need to ask for as far as a buyer's repair credit in your offer to be able to cover that 20%. So that's awesome as well, but that was part of last year's. The very last tab is called Value Add Opportunities. If you want to add a soda or snack machine, a laundry room, any additional stuff, it'll tell you how much it will actually increase your annual cash flow. So for example, if you add a Coke and a Frito machine, you know, and you want to add a laundry room, and you want to add that much per month, at the very bottom it'll actually show you how much you'd add to your annual cash flow. And this is awesome when you're trying to do business proposals and so forth to try to attract investor partners into your deals. You could actually show them how much it'll bolster the cash flow to add different things to your property. Okay, this concludes the 2013 CFE tutorial. This is Monica Main signing off, and I'll see you at the top.